Hey crafty cuties, welcome back. If you're new, I'm Jessica and I make lots of crafty videos here on YouTube. We are going to be using our scraps today, and I just showed a little example of the final journaling card with a photo layered on top. But yes, this is the time to use our branding strips or just really skinny scraps. I've been saving mine. I always do, honestly, and sometimes I use them in projects, sometimes I get over it and like give them away when other people want paper scraps. Anyways, hold on to those larger pieces that are more like 2 to 3 inches wide. I have a different project in mind for those, but today I'm hoping to use up a bunch of my like 1/4 of an inch strips, and they can be varying lengths. Like, it doesn't matter, just grab them all. If you want to go through and have a color scheme, you can do that. I personally like to just grab random colors and put them all together. We're going to start with a piece of copy paper. I'm going to trim this down to the final size that I want, which I'm first doing a journaling card, which is going to be 6 inches by 4 inches. And if you want, you can honestly just use a full sheet of 8.5 by 11 paper, or you can trim it down beforehand. It really doesn't matter. This is just going to be our base page. And so that is the important part. I do like to use copy paper because then the final project's not too thick, since I'm using this in my journal. Now, I keep referring to this as a journaling card, but you can use this as a journaling card, as a photo mat, which is what I really like to do, as a tag. I mean, really, you can use it for so many things. Okay, so actually I went ahead and I cut a couple bases out because I'm going to show you a few different final versions of this project. But first, I'm going to go ahead and take this piece of paper here, and I'm covering it in double-sided tape. I almost used my glue, but I'm trying to use up my double-sided tape, and so that's what I used. Once you have your entire base covered with adhesive of your choice, go ahead and literally just start layering on your strips of paper. Now, you can choose an angle and then just copy that all the way through, or you can do a straight version. I mean, this part doesn't really matter. I like to have them on an angle. I honestly like that look the most, but it probably doesn't make too much of a difference. So now this part is going to be repetitive, but I'm just going to go ahead and keep it in. And I'm just laying my strips down one after another, lining them up as perfect as I can. I really don't like when there is space in between the strips, so I'm kind of taking my time with this. Now, this is one reason why I prefer using wet glue over double-sided tape, because you do have more wiggle room to kind of move things around, and you can really slide them up against one another. A lot easier with wet glue, but the double-sided tape works fine. You also want to keep in mind, if you were going to run this through your sewing machine, which is one of the second versions I'm going to show you, you might not want to use too much adhesive, like just enough to stick them all on. But yeah, like I said, I'm just going through and grabbing random prints, and I just love the final look. I like when you have a bunch of random colors and prints on one page. Now, you could also use book pages. You could use like book image pages, like literally any scraps you have. I will say I find that it is going to work best if they are all straight. So that's why I'm using the branding strips, because they're already, one straight strip. That's what's going to give us this really uniform look. But if you have a bunch of scraps that are not strips, basically I would just go through and kind of trim them all down to be as even as possible all the way down. I hope that makes sense. So this is a pretty fun project, and it's just a really good way to use up your scraps, and you can make a bunch of these, up ahead of time and then just have them ready to go. This year, I've been trying so hard to use up the supplies in my craft room, and I haven't shown a lot of the projects, but I definitely know that you guys would like inspiration and ways to use this. And this is by no means no like new invention. I've seen these made before. I've made them in the past, but you know, it's just fun to share that with you guys. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that the corners are completely covered as well. Okay, once you have your entire base covered, we're going to trim off the excess. Now I'm trying to save as many of the leftover strips as possible, so I am going to try to trim this as close to the base card as I can. So we're going to just, I flip it over because then I can see exactly where I need to trim. And I start out by using my scissors so that I can have one straight edge. And then I just go ahead and use my paper trimmer because that's kind of the quickest way to just trim it all at once. So another thing, you can do the same idea with washi tape. Of course, I like using up my scraps, but I know that we all have washi tape that needs to be used up as well. And you're gonna get the same kind of look. So that's one thing that you can do with washi tape, and it turns out super pretty, especially because a lot of washi tape is foiled or, you know, has different transparency. Is that the right word? I don't know. I don't think that's what I meant to say. Opacity. I think that's what I meant to say. Oh boy. So you can see here, we're just trimming this all up, and then we're gonna have the final really pretty scrap journal card. I mean, I don't know what else to call it. I guess I should figure that out for a cool title to this video. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to show you a couple just simple variations of this same look. But here we go. This is what it looks like when it's all done. And so I just love it. I love all the prints together, and especially if you are like making a journal and you have all your scraps left over from the papers you used in a journal, it's really going to complement what pages and papers and prints you have in that journal. So the next variation is a really simple one. You're just going to take an ink of choice and go ahead and ink up the edges of each strip. That's going to add a lot of dimension on our card, and it really does change up the look. I prefer using a Distress Oxide because since it's kind of chalky, it really shows up on all colors, all darknesses of the pages. So I just go through and ink up all of the branding strips. Now, I started out by using my pistachio color, but it's kind of running low on ink, so it wasn't showing up how I liked. So you're going to see in a moment, I switched it up and I grabbed my Broken China color, which was a blue, and that showed up a lot better. So then you just do the same exact steps. You're just going to put them all down on your page and trim. You can see the difference here. On the left is the inked up one, on the right is not. So now I wanted to go ahead and cut that in half. So now we have two 3x4 cards. I'm going to go ahead and ink the entire edge of the journaling card to just kind of finish this off. And then we're going to take one of these cards and I'm going to show you the next variation of this project. And it just changes it slightly, but we're going to use the sewing machine. I did my best to give you guys a good view of me sewing on the paper, but as you can see, my tripod wasn't working, nothing was working, but I did leave some of these clips in here because I know a lot of you guys are intimidated about sewing on paper. For this first one, I'm just sewing around the edge, and I just wanted to give you a few tips for sewing on paper. Number one, I personally don't use a special needle. I use the needle that came with my sewing machine. I do clean off the dust and any paper particles pretty frequently. And then for the tension, mine's set at 2. And honestly, I've never changed the tension. But here we go. So again, on the left is the sewn border. And here we go, you get a closer look, and that adds a nice touch. But if you want to go one step further, I'm going to show you what you can do. So I'm trimming this piece down. This was like 3 inches by 6. I'm cutting off one corner. I'm going to take that corner, flip it over so that I have a kind of a mirrored image there, and trim that off. So we're going to have a tag, but I'm going to sew this a little bit differently. First of all, I go ahead and sew around the border. I used a zigzag stitch for that. But here you can see, and again, not the best view, I'm sewing each strip just with a regular straight stitch. And then when I'm done with the row, I take it off, trim my thread, and then I just keep making strips. And the cool thing about this is when you flip it over, you're going to have these lines. They do not have to be perfect, but what a great spot for some journaling. So that's everything for today's project. I hope you guys enjoyed it and got some inspiration. Let me know which variation you like the best, and I'll be using these in my December daily as you guys seem to be enjoying those videos, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.